Welcome to BSidesDayton. Super excited to be here today and giving this talk because it's one that is super near and dear to my heart and one that I'm sure you all will appreciate as well. I didn't give a bio. I don't, like giving bios, but my name is Nicole Beckwith. I am the manager of threat operations for Kroger, and I'm on Twitter, Mastodon, all the other things as @NicoleBeckwith. If you're interested. So with that, we're going to talk about hacking diversity today. And first thing in the morning, we might as well make everybody just extremely, really uncomfortable right from the start, right? And so I'm going to show you a series of photos, and I want you to raise your hand if this photo or the photos that I show make you uncomfortable or squeamish or make you nervous in any way. So who has a fear of heights? Few of you. Yeah, I actually attempted this, and I got out there and stepped back, and it was awful. And then the next week I heard it cracked or something, and I was like, oh man. That's why we don't do these things. What about fear of drowning? Yeah, that's pretty awful. This picture makes me really nervous. Spiders. And not only do we have the spider, we have umpteen bazillion other little spiders on there too, and I think that's even worse. What about claustrophobia? Yeah, there's no way I'm getting in a little tunnel. Just not happening. And if none of these made you squeamish, you are sure to hate this one. All right. So we can all hear that, we can feel that deep down, right? Some of us who are older, that brings back a few memories and some awful smell of chalk. So how uncomfortable did that make you? You think about the anxiety that you felt with those pictures, and I want you to think back to the worst day that you had and how uncomfortable you felt. And then I want you to just feel that for a second. Just remember that memory. Now, imagine every single day waking up, and as you're getting ready to go to work, you feel that feeling. You are uncomfortable, you don't feel like you belong, and every single day going to work, you dread it. That's how so many people feel because of the lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion in companies. And so, there's a few scenarios that I want to give. The first, and these are all ones that either I know of or I've experienced, and the first one is think of a black female who has just an amazing head of the kinky curly hair, and it's just beautiful, right? And that's part of her culture. But imagine if you are her and you feel the need to straighten your hair every day because it is unacceptable or it's looked down upon at work. And so you're trying to take a piece of yourself and change it or morph it into what others feel is acceptable. That's an awful feeling. And then what about if you're gay or you're queer and you've come out to your family, you've taken that huge step, but yet going to work, the people that you work with either they're masculine and they're making gay jokes or queer jokes, and you just can't be yourself at work. That is a deep pit of the stomach feeling that nobody should ever have to experience. And think about if you have a different religion or your culture, and you are told or expected to hide pieces of yourself to fit in with the others around you. That's what so many people experience on a day-to-day basis. And that's what we need to change. And then, we all have gone through the diversity, equality, equity, inclusion talks at work. We, have seen them everywhere, but I don't think we really understand what they mean. There's so many people that just say, oh, we're checking this box. It's not a checkbox. It's something that every single person in this room has to live day in and day out. And so I want to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion today, or equality. People interchange these. But what does it really mean? And so this is what I liken it to. Diversity is being able to sit at the table, being asked to sit at the table. Equality is being able to use your voice and being respected with that voice. And then inclusion, which for me is the key, is being asked to come back to that table again and again. It's not okay that we just invite somebody to that table, or we hire 15 people that fit that checkbox, right? That's not enough. We have to, with our companies, make sure that we have that equality and inclusion involved. So what is diversity? So many people say, well, it's black, white, it's, the color of your skin. It's so much more than that, though. It's all of these things on here, and then there's a John Hopkins wheel over on the right there. And, it can be any of these things. It can be multiple of these things. But all of these things play into that diversity wheel and what we're seeing. And so most people start with that diversity checkbox, right? Like they're saying, all right, we need to hire more people. We need to hire more, African Americans. We need to hire, Hispanic or Latino or, name the race or culture. But that's not it. There's so many other people on that spectrum. You think about autism, ADHD, socioeconomic. There's a ton of people on the diversity spectrum and ways of thinking that we need to include in there. And I feel that so many companies miss the mark on this. And they say, like, we have included people, right? Our stats are great, our metrics look amazing. We're there. But then what do they see? People are leaving. They quit. They're like, well, we hired so many people. Like, why did they quit? Well, it's because you forgot the other two pieces of that puzzle. And there's so many other pieces of that puzzle, too. I would argue that diversity probably isn't the first one that you should be paying attention to. If you hire somebody and you say, well, we hired somebody, he's from India and it's great. Well, if he's the only guy there and he has nobody that is there to support him and be a part of that culture, what did you just do? You did the exact thing that you were trying to drive against, and you alienated them. And so I would argue that you need that inclusion, that belonging, that acceptance, the tolerance first, right? You have to change people as a whole and the culture as a whole before you are really going to make a difference in your company. And so, when I think back and, I ask myself, I'm sure you guys have all asked yourselves, what do you like about work? What makes you stay at your job? And there are always three things that it comes back to: people, the money, and the mission. You can change the money, right? That's, not hard. You can change the mission, but it is really hard to change the people and the culture. And so, we have to have all three for somebody to stay and not leave their position. And, we used to tell folks, if one of those are off, we can change it, right? Let's try to make a fix. If two of them are off, you should probably start polishing your resume. If three of them are off, then you probably need to find another job. But is it really on the person to change those things? No. It's on us, every single one of us. It's on the company. And so we really need to start with the beginning and, make these change. And how many of you have left because of a bad manager? Yeah. It sucks. You don't have the support. You don't have, the gratification or the reward. That's the same thing. And so you have to change the people, and the rest will fall in place. Here are some statistics today. And I put the WTF there because WTF. These are awful. And until these change, we're not going to be happy. Every single one of these needs to be equal. That's awful. And women, 25%. Yeah. So we have a lot of things that we need to change in cyber. So why is it important to have diversity in cyber? Why do we even care? Well, it's because cyber is a global issue. It's not a US issue. It's not a white person issue. It's a global issue. And so, we have to understand the culture across the globe. We have to understand how families operate everywhere in the world. Adversaries are not just based in the US. Why would we treat everything else like it was based in the US? And we're really bad about that, right? So one of the folks that is on my team, she was telling a story, and she's from Nigeria, and she worked for a large corporation. I'm not going to say it, but one of her jobs or tasks was to look at bots and disinformation campaigns. And when she came on the team, they said, you know what? If we see a cluster of activity in one particular IP address, that must mean it's a bot farm, right? Because that's how we would think. Like, there's all these computers, or there's all these accounts coming from the same IP address. Well, the problem is, so many cultures either have multiple family members in the same location that share the IP address, or in Nigeria specifically, they actually share the same machine, or the same, like they may have one phone, or they may have one, tablet. And so what they were seeing as an issue was actually shutting down a whole culture. And it wasn't until she spoke up and made them aware of that, because her cultural background, she had that knowledge. And that's when they were like, oh, you know what? We didn't even think about that. And we see that over and over and over in multiple products and solutions that we do, right? But it's global. So what do we do to stop this? How do we change this? Well, first, I would put every single one of you have to be a change agent, right? But secondly, let's talk about how women and men particularly apply to job posts. So I couldn't figure this out when I first started, recruiting for my team. Why? Why am I getting, 500 resumes from every white guy out there, but I'm not getting any other resumes? Like, what is going on? And so I started asking people, like, will you look at this job post and tell me, like, what's wrong? And then I looked at the job post and I'm like, holy cow. So we've since changed it, so, being a change agent. But in Kroger, in our area specifically, we're called security engineers, and there's different levels, but we basically took everything and put it in the same post. And so it was IAM and cryptography and incident response, and like everything was in the same post, and the kitchen sink. Well, what happened? This, exactly. And I would even argue, guys, no offense, but probably 10% if you had that and you're gonna apply to the job anyways, right? But women, we have to have so much more. We second guess ourselves. We are, taking a look, and we're asking our friends and our family members, and oh my gosh, is my resume really good? And we redo it 15 times, and then maybe we apply. And so what I did is I said, heck with the job post. I don't care anymore, and I'm sure some of you saw this on Twitter. And I said, I don't care anymore about qualifications, degrees, background. I don't care about any status, nothing. I want you to send me your resume. And you know what I got? Over 100 resumes in 2 days from some really qualified people. And it was because they didn't put the pressure on themselves. They just said, this is a cool job that I really want to be a part of, and they applied. And I'll tell you, it was really hard to narrow the list down. Like, I had some amazing folks apply, and I would have wanted to hire all hundreds of them. But here's the thing. Does that bachelor's actually matter? Does that certification actually matter? No. Now, caveat there, some things it might, right? Like, I don't want a doctor working on me that's like, hey, I'm an intern, I got a scalpel, we're good, you know? So there are caveats there. But listen, what we do is not rocket science. We can teach it. I care more about the person who is driven and creative and is motivated and wants that job more than I care about any piece of paper that's given. So we have to change our thought process and our thinking if we're gonna, fix this solution. And salary requirements too. Like, do we really, can we not post those? Why? You're gonna find out anyways. And I would rather tell somebody, like, hey, the job is $100,000, and then be like, yeah, no, that's too low. Or, it's $160,000, and they're like, maybe I'm not qualified. But at least they know where that salary is. There's nothing secretive about it. I'm really glad to see the laws changing towards this. So with my team and recruiting my team, I posted on Twitter, I posted on LinkedIn, I posted on social media, because the majority of the people that we're hiring for, they're not going out and searching the regular job postings. It's that connection that they have with somebody who posts it that's a friend of a friend. And so we also need to be thinking a little bit differently about that. And then on top of that, the gatekeeping that I was talking about, we have to throw that out. And then what I found, and what has been really interesting, is some of the folks that I ended up hiring, and if you're watching, yes, I'm talking about you, have just done a phenomenal job. And they are the ones that second-guessed themselves and didn't want to apply to the first job posting, but then they got here, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna brag, I have a kick-ass team, and I'm super proud of them. And it was because we threw all of this horseshit out. It doesn't matter. So, let's start thinking a little bit differently about, how we look at things. So, how do we attract and then retain talent? Because it's one thing to get the people in the door, right? It's a whole nother thing to keep them there. And so I would just say, be a good person. You have to be an ally. One of the biggest things that we say is bring your whole authentic self to work. I do not care if you have purple hair. I don't care if you're tatted from head to toe. I don't care about your religion, your race, your ethnicity, your background. Like, none of that matters to me. I care that you do a good job, right? And that's all that should matter. And if somebody is more comfortable coming to work in a sweatshirt and a beanie, why would that matter to me? I don't need somebody in a suit. That makes no sense, right? I'd rather have them, in a sweatshirt and a beanie. A lot of stuff that I see, and some of the things that, I touch on here is, we have a lot of introverted people in our space, right? And so you have to communicate with your folks. And what I did in my first one-on-one with everybody was, hey, how do you prefer to communicate? Like, are you one of those people that you want me to call on you during a meeting? Or you choose to be given a task? Or do you want to just volunteer for a task? Or, like, what does that communication look like? Because maybe they don't want to be called on, and that makes them, even more uncomfortable. Ask about their lives. Acknowledge the good work that they do. Praise your people. They need to be praised. And then the last one, pay your people. I would rather pay somebody what they're worth now than have to fight for them for $5,000 or $10,000 later, right? It's stupid. So pay them what they're worth up front. So just be a good person. And the last thing that I'm going to say is, if you're not an ally, you're an adversary. So pick your player, right? So that's my takeaway for you, is pick your player, be an ally, and let's change everything. So thank you.